Welcome, Jack of all Spades Nation. You know what time it is. We back like we forgot our mask in the house. I am the beloved one, DJ Spellman. To my left, the pride of Africa, Ken Wabibi.
It's pride of Africa, YBB. Shout out to Benin. Shout out to Benin.
Shout out. To my right, we have the boy, Banks on the beat.
Banks on the beat, Blue Water Banks, Fat Boy Tires on.
3700 Wilkerson Boulevard.
North Carolina 28208 West Side.
Let's get it. You know. And today, our special guest.
I like that intro, man.
We didn't get to you yet, sir. We didn't get to you yet.
Like, what?
The ball coming your way.
I need to add something to mine.
And last but not least, we have Mr. Bobby Robinson, who is a corporate and intellectual property attorney for Nexen Pruitt.
Look at that. See, y'all done set me up. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to have to come back and with my own little slogan and intro.
Well, how you doing today, Mr. Robinson?
I'm good, brother. I appreciate y'all having me, man.
Yeah, no doubt. So before we even get started, we love the term connect the dots. So we got to shout out Mr. 704, Christopher Moxley.
Shout out.
He's the reason for the season.
Absolutely.
So he definitely was the connector for us to you. And now you're here on the episode, Jack of all Spades. Welcome.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we them 704 shop mask coming in strong.
Yes, indeed.
You repped yours. I walked in with mine.
So big up 704 shop.
Absolutely.
Make sure you tune into that episode as well.
Yeah.
All right. So before we actually get into the interview, we love the term, giving people their flowers while they're still here. So we don't want to wait. We're gonna make sure you get your due today. So you have founded a boutique corporate law practice. You also founded a legal tech corporation or company.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
IntelliDoc, if I'm correct.
Yep.
All right. And you were named Legal Elite for the corporate law and the business of North Carolina magazine in 2019.
Yep. We're trying to do it for 2021 too. So
hey,
hear that?
Yes, sir. Speaking into existence.
Yeah.
Right.
So with all that being said, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, man. My journey is untraditional, brother. I came from a single parent household. Dad was locked up. So my journey is a lot different, right? And so how I perceive business and wealth and creation comes from a lens that not a lot of my colleagues share, right? In fact, of all the attorneys in the world, African Americans only make up 5% of that, right? And so on top of that, there aren't a lot of black lawyers that do corporate work, let alone intellectual property work. So the whole wealth gap for our community is even that more disparate because you ain't got people to go to that look like you, that can relate to you, that can help you scale and grow your business, or let alone just break the information down to you in a way that works for you, right? And I have that ability. I have the ability to talk to the boardroom or the streets. We really need to figure out what that means. And so my journey is just different in terms of how I've arrived. But I've always had a passion for business and entrepreneurship, and legal was just an avenue for me because I went to law school late. I was in my late 20s. Compared to most students go right out of undergrad.
Yeah.
I worked. I started businesses. I got my MBA. I then went to law school, opened my practice, and then got into technology. I don't have a technology background, but I saw where the opportunities were in tech and dipped my toe in it. So we're still trying to get the platform off the ground, but we gonna keep it pushing.
Man, something that you said resonated with me a lot because, I work in the education field, and what you said kind of speaks to some of the educators. They don't look like the students, a lot of the students that they're serving.
Absolutely.
So when you say, I can go from the boardroom, then break it down to the streets, that is so key.
Oh.
Because if we want our people to move up, we have to have those those people like yourself that can take this information that's highbrow and not to say dumb it down, but just put it in a way
Translate
that
it.
we can
Yeah,
understand.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can't underappreciate that, right?
No.
And I had to even get comfortable being authentic in a way that I tried to the code switching and all of that, right? But it's uncomfortable for me, right? Because of the environments I grew up in, right? So when I see a brother who's trying to hustle and trying to get it, I want to be able to just share with him how to do it the right way, even if it's just planting that seed, right? Because they'll eventually come back, right? So that's how I approach life generally, because I understand kind of where people are trying to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're part of the North Carolina, Mecklenburg County, and John S. Leary Bar Association.
Yeah.
What's the distinction between each?
So when you get licensed in North Carolina or any state for that matter, you have a state bar, and then you have local bar associations, right? The Mecklenburg Bar, it's just a general bar association that lawyers here in Mecklenburg County have to join, right? The Leary Bar is a very specific historical African American bar association, right? And so that's where all the black lawyers collaborate and hang out with, right? You know, because again, we kind of get lost in the fray.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in these general associations. So it's good to be a part of the Leary Bar and to have an opportunity to share and more importantly, have older attorneys mentor you or pour into you that you don't necessarily get from being a part. And I think all those organizations are great, but it's nothing like having something for you.
For sure. The importance of mentorship too.
Yeah.
Okay. How has COVID-19 affected your day-to-day as an attorney?
It depends, right? So my practice is two. It's kind of twofold, right? So I do what we call corporate law. It's really like business law. My corporate work has been impacted the most because I do a lot of M&A work, mergers, acquisition work. So helping people buy businesses, sell businesses. Ain't nobody buying no businesses right now unless you're an investor who are trying to what we call a distressed business, whereby it's rapidly losing income, but it's still a good business, or it may have some good contracts or something that you can acquire. You know, that business is slowly dwindling or it's stabilized. We think it'll come back, but until then, I'm really sitting in my intellectual property practice.
Okay.
So people are still protecting their brands. They're still creating music or what have you. And you know, we were just talking before we went live about all of the current events, and we'll get to some of them that are creating this sense of awareness for people to say, I need to protect my brand if I want to scale it. And that could be a trademark, a copyright, getting into licensing deals and all that, endorsement deals. And so that's been more, I'd say, busier for me.
Okay.
The corporate stuff, you know, it's hit or miss, but the trademark stuff is still thriving.
That's where it's at. Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about being an elephant in the room regarding being a minority in tech. Do you feel the same as far as being a minority in being an attorney?
So if it wasn't Sunday, I'd cuss, but
Go for it.
Hey, we got content. You can't cuss on this podcast.
Let it off.
I'll put the mildly. Hell yeah. Yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard as hell being a black lawyer, especially doing corporate work. You know, especially when you're dealing with folks who aren't used to dealing with you. And you have to, and keep in mind, you know, I'm 37. I haven't been, you know, I've been practicing law for about 5-6 years now. So what holds me is my giftedness just in business general. It just comes naturally. And then you throw the legal side on it. So some people see you and be like, man, that cat young, what can he teach me, right? But then when I'm sitting next to someone who's been practicing for 30 years and they step back and say, you go forward with this, it's that validation that, you know, like you're on the right path and you're doing what you need to do. And even cats in the game right now, and they'll defer to me like, hey, he's in the room. Go to him, right? So you kind of get those unofficial nods, but it's still hard to say. Nevertheless, it's
Still trusted
hard.
though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, big up to you on that. So we've mentioned it a few times that you deal with intellectual property. So I'm sure a lot of people hear that term a lot nowadays, but can you really break it down for the listeners? What is IP?
It's your creative. I had a friend that said it this way: it's your creative genius, right? It's your it's just like real estate, right? It's whatever intellectually you create that you express, right? And there are really 5 areas of intellectual property. There are trademarks, which we talked about. They protect like logos and names and symbols. You got copyright, lyrics, beats, productions, photo, videography, that sort of stuff. And then you have patents, right? They protect inventions. So we all know the George Foreman or this little circuit board, whatever it is, whatever you've invented, this microphone, that can be protected from a patent. The 2 that don't get a lot of love, one's going to get a whole lot of love with the changes with the NCAA, is the right of publicity, which is what we also know as name, image, and likeness, where the athletes will be able to.
Ed O'Bannon.
Yeah. So athletes will be able to benefit from the commercialization of their individual persona, right? And then trade secrets. So trade secrets is another one. The 2 examples I could use to kind of frame that up is the KFC recipe and the Coca-Cola recipe, right? They're secret. No one knows about it. Only a limited amount of people. It's still protected via intellectual property, right? So some products or services, you can have more than one, right? So you can have, an album. The name is trademarked and the music is copyrighted, right? So you can have multiple types of intellectual property. It's not mutually exclusive to have more than one.
Okay.
This is my first time even hearing about the trade secrets. Like you said, it doesn't get a lot of love. So can you kind of go deeper into that? So KFC's recipe and Coca-Cola's formula, how is it protected? Because like there's Pepsi, there's other, quote unquote colas. So what gives them the protection as far as the trade secret?
So, there are standards that you have to qualify for it to be a trade secret, right? I don't want to get too technical. but so one of them is you gotta take reasonable efforts to protect it. Sometimes those reasonable efforts could be having somebody sign a non-disclosure, having somebody sign a confidentiality agreement, limiting, again, the number of people who have access to it. And then it has to have commercial value. If it has no commercial value, the goal is to keep it from your competition, right? And so, when folks have trade secrets, we got to figure out how best to protect it, because the issue is it doesn't get registered anywhere, So like copyrights and trademarks and patents get filed at a federal or government office. That's not the case with trademarks, right? So it has no way of sitting anywhere. So that's why you hear these things like, oh, is it locked up somewhere that nobody has access to, those sorts of things, because it's not filed or registered anywhere.
Okay.
All right.
So when it comes to protecting your intellectual properties, when should a person or a company start that process?
I say ASAP, man. I get that, everybody don't have access to capital or they don't have the money. There are some things you can do to protect it yourself, but then there's other things I just feel like you need to at least holler at an attorney or someone that could guide you on how best to do it. Like even copyrights, you won't hear a lot of lawyers say this, but I tend to say, look, you could do that copyright on your own, right? Now, some of my clients, they don't want to fool with it, so they'll just say, hey, let me just have you do it. But there are certain things you can do independently. Trademarks, I wouldn't suggest it, of course, patents either, right? But the sooner the better, because what I don't want is for you to build this brand and then you've infringed on someone's trademark or copyright, and then you got to take everything down. Everything got to come. Oh, we send out a lot of things. We send you familiar?
Oh yeah,
You familiar?
yeah. A lot of stories on those.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. That's the power of intellectual property, because you can prevent other people from using it, right? And you can monetize it, right? So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, like, this is your intellectual property, this podcast, right? So whatever you got to do to protect it, that logo and everything else, that's important, right? So do that part to make sure that you're very exclusive to it.
Okay, for sure. All right. On another note, I mean, you kind of went into this a little bit, but the difference on trademark and copyright.
Yeah. So again, the difference really is a trademark is what we call a commercial identifier, right? So when we see the Nike swoosh, we automatically know that's Nike. We see the Apple for Apple computers, we automatically know what that is. That's what you want when you're establishing your brand in the marketplace, that it's distinctive from someone else's brand. Because the standard for trademark is likelihood of confusion, right? We all have seen Coming to America. We've all seen McDowell's, right? We've seen McDowell's, straight up classic example of trademark infringement, right? Because the issue is you don't want a consumer thinking they coming to break bread with you, but then they're going to your competition unknowingly, right? And it happens all the time. So that's why it's important to make sure you protect that source identifier of a trademark. And then a copyright, it's just the creative expression of it, right? So if it's a photo, you see, even when you're watermarking or trying to Google something, and there they got the watermarks on it, it's a copywritten image, right? And if you want to use it, you got to get permission to do so. If you don't, get a nice cease and desist letter, right? But there is this little known thing of what we call a fair use exception to copyright, and I think we've spoken about this to say if you are using it for educational purposes typically, and you're not going to commercialize it, then you don't need to use or seek permission if it falls within fair use. If it doesn't, the standard is whoever created the content, they own it. So you got to get their permission to use it.
Is there a percentage of the fair use? Like, is there, well, let's use DJ's book, for example. As far as the lyrics, is there a percentage you can use, or like you can't go beyond a certain amount of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good. See, we got a live case study, right?
Big up, man. Big up.
So DJ, we spoke about this. You're right. There is, if you're gonna copy the whole section or copy it verbatim, that's not fair use, right? But if you're sampling, and I mean a small sample, in his case, a sentence or two, and he's using it for educational purposes. It's not like he's taking it to create T-shirts or other monograms that tee up that. Then that's different, right? But really good example of where fair use would come into play. And obviously, while it's not required, in his case, he gave proper attribution to the original content owner, right? And from a policy or a practical perspective, I would be hard pressed to see anyone coming to me or him to say, we want that removed, although you're educating students. Right. It's not a good look for their business model either, right? Yeah. If we were to raise hell about it.
Education,
right. Okay. So we look at all of those angles when deciding whether or not that exception is applicable.
Got it. Well, a bigger example of a case study for this I'd go into is Blurred Lines, which is the use of Marvin Gaye sample for Pharrell and Robin Thicke. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that case has been around for some time. It is what it is. Music sampling and covering of letters and owning masters is probably the biggest takeaway, right? Getting the permission, we've all heard the saying, right? It's better to, ask for forgiveness.
Get permission.
Yeah, right.
They
heard
get
that.
permission. In the case of copyright, no, it's just better. It's just better to get permission, right? And in this case, just get permission, man. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. Only because it was clear, and hearing the lyrics, you get into this whole you're into music. It's no one sound or another is unique to one individual. We all kind of, in the creative expression of creating anything, kind of sample what's around us, right? And we're inspired by those things. But it's just how much do we leverage and claim as our own original creative work,
Right.
right? And if we can't, then that's when the permission of others, because as a content creator, you're the only one that can create what we call derivative works. It's works that are basically spawned off of your original work, right? And so if you can't do it, then no one else can.
Facts. To me, it kind of felt like opening a can of worms in a sense, because music, everything is sampled. Nothing's really an original idea.
I agree.
We hear things all the time, and it might take us to something else it reminds us of, or it sounds familiar, or it gives us this feeling of something else we've heard. But I'm more worried on what this does in the future as far as, what people are entitled to, or but at the same time, it's a responsibility that Pharrell and Robin Thicke overlooked. Like, this is something, this whole idea belongs to somebody else, but you just recreated it originally, but it's still, it's so many different directions with it. But I'm just hoping it doesn't do any damage in the future moving forward. Also, the Marvin Gaye family, they come for everything that they have. Anything, any slightest, you better watch it because they want it.
They're on it.
And I get it.
Yeah, no, I agree. To the point about Pharrell and Robin Thicke, they've been in the game long enough, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like nobody on your team remotely said anything about it,
Yeah.
And so sometimes we need those type of cases of creativity to push the bounds of the law, to figure out what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I think artists to come have a good example of what not to do.
One more quick question I know I'm about to pass it off, but
yeah.
As far as the sampling, have you ever heard of any cases where maybe an artist, as far as the music, maybe they didn't sample the music, but say, let's go with Future and Designer. He sounds just like him. There's nothing. Is there anything you can do in that case, or just
because you can't claim right to a sound,
a vocal
vocal
performance?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you and I take that back in the sense of trademarking, right? You can trademark, like ESPN trademark the chime.
It's in the game.
NBC, yeah.
ESPN,
so all of that, it's very unique to them, right? But it's hard from a stylistic sound perspective, right, to claim rights to it, right? But you can the lyrics and the artistry around the beats and everything else, right, that you can claim rights to. Like, let's do that.
Okay. Can't wait to record like Barry White.
I've heard some pieces already.
Yeah.
But just to kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Robin Thicke, Pharrell, Marvin Gaye estate situation, that was a multi-million-dollar mistake.
$15 million, I believe.
So,
it was something crazy like
so
that.
everybody listening, please do your due diligence.
I don't even think the song is on iTunes. Is it on iTunes anymore? I think they might have
had to take it down.
Take it down.
Yeah. So during that last conversation, you also talked about content creators. So there's another case study that's kind of going on in the news cycle. B. Simone.
Yeah.
So she put out an empowerment kind of workbook, and then come to find out, she just took a lot of pages from other content creators, and she had to take her book off the shelves. So have you ever had to deal with a client who infringed on somebody's copyright or trademark?
All the time.
So it's not a rare occurrence.
It's hard. Content creation is hard. And that's why it's important to protect it, because everybody trying to come up, man. Everybody trying to figure out the quickest and easiest way to put out content and stay competitive. But there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and not everyone gets caught doing it, right? And so, the whole B. Simone, that's just one example. We were talking about the whole Nick Cannon situation with Viacom. There's a new one with Taylor Swift and her new album. Haven't infringed on another African American brand. So these things happen, and it's important for small or growth companies to protect their brand too, because you get these bigger celebrities, these bigger companies. I'm fighting with Kodak right now, the film company, over a trademark issue with one of my clients who has a fashion line that's uses some iteration of the name Kodak. And to me, it's trademark bullying at its finest, right? You get this small boutique brand. Ain't nobody thinking about Kodak film when they go to buy his stuff. Ain't nobody, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those situations where if you're not connected or having the right conversations, you would fold under those situations, right? You would just create something different,
right?
But you don't have to, right? Because we gonna have to fight that.
And companies, I don't mean to cut you off, but companies like that are so big, it even makes me think, how does a small business like that even get on their radar?
Yeah, so they probably had there are a lot of services out there that monitor the trademark, but the crazy part is his trademark got registered.
So he already had a open anything.
Yeah, he already had a registered trademark. They were saying, well, we're going to try to get it canceled, or we're going to contest it, and it's all after the fact stuff. And I'm like, we're going to have to fight this, right? So, and that's what we've been going into this battle with them. Now they're at the place of, well, we'll just coexist together. Hell, we've been doing that already.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of times it's just one of those situations where it's just like they just want to see what you're going to say, and hopefully you fold, like take it down. They were trying, man, we could talk all day about just so many examples of big brands coming after smaller companies to really just capture the market. And so, you just got to get your stuff registered. I was going to say get your shit registered, get everything done. And then that way we can have a full-on fight with any brand, any day.
Let me just make another point of emphasis. If you do it the right way, you can't get bullied by the big brands, because I know a lot of us, like people of color, we have these great ideas, but we don't go through
the process,
paperwork and all of
because
that.
Correct.
We don't value it until it's too late.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't. It's like, okay, if a trademark costs $3,000, it's like, okay, how much do we need to save up? Where do we need to invest our money? But we'll do a whole bunch of other stuff with it.
Yeah.
But then when it's time, it's like, damn, I ain't.
Shoulda.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
And it's too late.
Just hearing that right there, it makes me think of another situation, and I don't think the creators were compensated. So Fortnite, the game, they were using people's dances. So is that a situation where they could have trademarked their dances?
That could have been a right of publicity. It could have been also more of a copyright in terms of the images. So yeah, there are a number of different ways they could have done that. But it's also a race to priority. How can we prove that you were using it first?
Correct.
Right? And so that's why websites and IG accounts and everything else is important. When we're going through that process.
Well, keeping it with the social media influencers, I know we had a conversation off air, and I said I didn't even know anything about this, so I needed to bring this on the podcast.
Yeah.
So talking about the influencers and the way they are promoting ads on social media, you informed me that is becoming a big fight in the IP space. So could you just let the listeners know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I represent influencers from the perspective of, you get a student, an athlete, or any type of influencer who gets approached by a brand to promote a product or a service. there are certain laws that they have to. It's one thing if you get this water and take a picture with it, post it on IG, and they pay you 10 grand to do that, but the disclosures aren't there. Hashtag ad or hashtag brand partner or what have you, or you got it buried in 20 different hashtags. So the standards are, a lot of influencers don't know. They just hop out there, build a brand, get free trips, get all that stuff right. Bloggers too, right? But there are a lot of laws that the Federal Trade Commission is the organization that enforces the laws for social media. And it's a lot for me to educate my clients who are either just getting into the game, have been in the game for a while, nobody really told them what was up in terms of their brand protection. And so, yeah, that's a huge area, man. Influencer marketing is projected to be like a $20 billion industry in like 2022 or something crazy like that. And so, when you asked me the question about, how my practice was affected by COVID, man, I pivoted to doing more social media influencer work, because, it's a whole lot of IP stuff and social platforms, and I had to find a space that was somewhat recession proof. Social media ain't going nowhere. And in fact, everybody heading to social media, right?
You got more time than
Right, exactly. So, and brands are struggling with connecting with people right now. And so they need folks like you guys to get them in front of your audience and to move product and services. But, you could do it, but I just need to equip you with the right information so to make sure we don't get no nasty letters from the FTC about what we're doing.
More on that. So what is the thing that would have the FTC send a social media influencer a letter, like that the fact that they're doing an ad and they're not paying the government, like where does the trouble begin?
Yeah, so the trouble begins when you don't disclose that you've been paid for it, right? So the whole notion of advertising, it needs to be truthful and honest, right? Because, you don't want to buy something, and that may change your perspective if I know, oh, you got paid 10 grand to tell me to go buy this water. That may change my opinion.
You didn't really like it.
Right. So you got to be able to disclose that I have a business connection or relationship with this brand that I'm promoting. That happened with Kylie Jenner with the whole Fire, what was that?
Fire Festival.
Fire Festival,
Right.
right? So she got paid $250 grand to post like 3 posts or something crazy like that. And she never disclosed that she was getting paid. It seemed like she was just posting, but she never, got paid for it. Well, she got paid for it, but she ended up settling for like $90,000. They ended up getting sued for that. So it's things like that they need to do. And you mentioned something about making a claim. So if you're promoting a sports drink, but you say it's the best ever, you ain't even drink it yet. Right? You ain't even try it, and so you can't make misleading claims either. So that could be very problematic. That happened with Cardi B and Jordan Sparks. They were promoting some type of detox tea or something of that nature. And the FTC came after the tea brand. They didn't come after Cardi or Jordan Sparks and a few other people. They sent them warning letters, basically. But they settled with the tea company. And so it's a lot, that's out there, right? So and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter are the 3 biggest influencer platforms. TikTok now, but that may be going away. So
yeah, I heard about that.
So it's a big space, and I'm now rebranding myself as the influencer attorney. So
Hey,
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
so I'm excited about that. That's why I need that promo video.
shout out Marlo.
No doubt. Jay Marlo, collab, Bobby Rob. Coming soon.
All day.
Well, now our next segment is the fan favorite, the most requested segment, the top 5 dead or alive. Now, what are the top 5 dead or alive things an entrepreneur needs to know before starting a business?
The top 5 for me, I would say, make sure you're passionate about it. You know, because sometimes we always try to follow the money, right? And then when shit get hard, it's like, well, I don't want to do this. Though, right?
Yeah.
Right. So just be passionate about it. I'd also say just get help early. You know what I'm saying? Oftentimes we try to do it on our own or try to figure out, you know, how to scale and grow. I've been fortunate to succeed and fail, and I might be able to help you or share some tidbits along the way. Legally protect yourself, right? Legally protect yourself. Have a team. You know, get a good lawyer, accountant, all those folks who may be charging you some money but can save you a lot of money too.
Yeah.
So do that, man, and just have fun. You know, lead on purpose. You know, sometimes it's like you just in the business, but it's are you in the business? Are you working the business? Or is the business running you? Right. So lead on purpose, man, and you'll be thankful for it in the end.
Jack of all spades nation.
Solid close.
You heard the words. You heard the wisdom
Good words.
of Bobby Robinson. Now, when you listen to the episode and you are one of those individuals, maybe you're going to jump into social media marketing, being an influencer, you now know who you need to reach out to.
Correct.
Early.
The
Early.
influencer attorney.
The
Sir.
influencer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, so Mr. Robinson, could you shout out your social media handles or your website so people can try to find you?
Yeah, man. TheInfluencerAttorney.com.
It's already branded.
It's already
Oh,
branded.
wait, don't play no games.
Came ready.
Early. Hey.
At IG, influencer attorney.
You definitely gonna get a follow from Jack of all spades.
Yeah.
course.
So I appreciate that, man. And then I'm of course, on LinkedIn and all that. Just Bobby Robinson. Yeah, we holding it down.
I like that. You stay ready, so you got to get ready.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I
yes,
like
sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
Influencer
That's why I was
attorney.
late today. I was trying to search the trademark and do some
Wait, I'll never stop working. Man, we definitely appreciate the time.
Appreciate that,
And I'm definitely going to reach out to you on collaborations with
Let's
what I
do
got
it.
going on.
Let's
You
do
already
it.
We
know.
all are.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
facts.
So, Jack of all spades nation, you know what it is. You can find us on Anchor
Anchor.
for all your streaming needs. But if you don't want to go to Anchor, you can go to Apple Podcasts or
This is
Google
true.
Podcasts. Watch it and listen to it on YouTube,
Yep.
SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course, we love Breaker. I'm going to get the app right after this episode.
You don't love breakers.
I'm gonna start listening to the episodes on Breaker. But, you know, as always, I am the beloved one.
It's your boy YBB. Shout out Benin one more time.
Shout out.
Yep. Banks, Blue Water Banks, Bad Boy Tires.
And we had the pleasure of listening to the gems dropped by Mr. Robson. Once again, thank you, sir.
Appreciate you,
Yes,
brothers.
sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know the closing. Rest in peace, Fife Dog. Tell your mother, tell your father, send a telegram. And we out.
Yes, sir.